Hello and welcome back to the Writer's Block on True Faith. We're back for a whole new season of chat, debate and laughs. And obviously we hope that you can join us for all of it. Tonight I'm joined by Adam, Chris and Craig, and hopefully they're more prepared than Newcastle United are for the new Premier League season. So lads, how are we all tonight?
Not bad, Dan.
Good, thanks.
Good, mate. Thanks, Dan.
So just before we get started, as I always say, even though it's been quite a while, if you do want to get involved in things like this on True Faith, head to @TFNUFC on Twitter and get in touch. So let's crack on with the first topic tonight, which is the lack of signings at Newcastle United this summer. Of course, Joe Willock is reported to be on his way. There's apparently a fee being signed. But apart from that, absolutely nothing at all. It's brilliant, isn't it? But yeah, Adam, how concerned are you at no one coming in?
Very concerned because if we go into this season with the same squad pretty much as last year, except for the 7 players who've left, we can only expect the same result. It'll be a relegation battle. I don't see, obviously, without anyone coming in to bolster the squad, there's no reason to think we can't be ambitious and we can kind of try and push for that top half of the table place. But on the other hand, I was actually thinking about it a little bit today. It's a little article I was writing for True Faith about previous years where we have signed players. For example, in the summer of 2007, under Sam Allardyce, we signed a whole host of new players: Alan Smith, Joey Barton, Mark Viduka, Jeremy Kasapa. And then again, under McLaren, when McLaren became manager in 2015, we signed a number of young players, international players. But in both of those seasons, we ended up getting relegated. So, in the end of the current season, at the end of the second season after the summer of 2007, we got relegated, and the nucleus of the squad was made up of those summer signings. So it's not necessary. It doesn't necessarily mean that bringing players in the off season is going to bring success. But growing up supporting Newcastle United, would love to hear about being linked with good players. I remember buying the Chronicle just to read the back pages and see who we'd been linked with. I think it was one summer where we were after apparently Rivaldo, who at the time was one of the best players in the world. Stories like that just get you excited. And no, under Mike Ashley's Newcastle United, we just don't have those kind of things to get us up for the new season. And it's just a big shame. So I'm concerned because I think it'll just leave us in the same position as last year, fighting to avoid relegation.
Do you think there's a balance between signing too many players and not signing, say, at all? Because, of course, there's always the argument that says if you sign a lot, they take too long to gel.
Yeah, I think so. And I think as well, as the 2 examples I gave there, the summer of 2007 and 2015, we signed players who didn't necessarily have the heart for wearing the black and white shirt. I think we didn't perhaps do enough due diligence in bringing the players in that summer. So you have to try and sign the right player who's going to put the shirt on and give 110% for the badge. If we haven't got that when we go out and take the field, then we're in trouble. So I think that's another thing to consider as well. And I think another example was Florian Thauvin, who was signed just after the start of the 2015-16 season, and he just didn't look like he was interested at all when he was on the pitch. So there's a lot of due diligence needs to be done on the players that we do bring in to make sure that they're the right type of player for Newcastle United.
And obviously, as I've mentioned, there is the whole Joe Willock saga that still continues. So, Chris, if Joe Willock does come in, as it's reported that he's meant to, how much improvement? Obviously, I doubt that he'll be as good as he was last season. To repeat that would be phenomenal. But how much improvement would him coming back in do to the team?
Well, I mean, you're right to say it's a huge sign to come in, Dan, as well. I mean, he came in last season, and I would go so far as to say if he hadn't come in, I think we would have went down. I think he gave us that spark. I think he gave us that resurgence. His legs, his energy, his willingness to be on the ball, his enthusiasm. He was everything that we didn't have in midfield, really. And I think you're right that the pressure on his shoulders is going to be quite hefty by a lot of fans. They'll just think he'll come back in and smash in goal after goal after goal again. He might not do that. I know some people have said, be wary of the Kennedy curse, that he was great on loan and then he might be shite the next season. But I don't think he's that kind of a player. He's, his willingness and his desire to succeed and improve. I think he will come and have an impact. I mean, the one thing that worries me is the bad influence on some of the other midfield partners that might be around him. You know, I wrote a piece for True Faith not too long ago. Everyone knows my views on Shelby. And I think he drags a lot of these players down to his level in terms of his lack of mobility, his total disinterest to affect the game. And I really hope that Willock doesn't pick up bad habits from him. But, you know, I don't think just him alone is enough. You know, I think he definitely adds something to the squad, you know, and having him there is definitely better than not having him there. But, you know, we're taking a massive gamble. You know, as Adam says there's a real reason to be worried. You know, we were very lucky last season, you know, with flashes of brilliance from St. Max and then Willock coming in, Wilson until he gets injured, which he always does. You know, I think we're really sailing close to the sun here again by not investing in depth, mate.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one. So if Willock does come in, obviously, as I say, where do you see us finishing out of interest? I know it's a very big question, and I'm sorry to put the pressure on you straight from the start. Honestly, we're meant to be easing ourselves back into writer's block, and I know put a massive pressure on you straight away.
I would have a whiskey if I knew you were going to say that, mate, instead of a coffee. But
sorry,
but no, no. To be honest with you, I mean, Willock coming in is massive for us. But you know, we finished 12th, and we were quite lucky to finish 12th. You know, we all know a lot of teams fell over towards the finishing line. We all make comments about that as well in the group chat and on writers block episodes as well. Honestly, I think we'll be lucky to finish around about 14th, 15th is my gut feeling. Not to sound too negative.
Yeah. So, Chris, sorry, not Chris. There's two C's. I'm getting confused
Too
here.
many C's.
I know. I'm sorry. Obviously, I've mentioned the lack of transfers, Craig. So, do you pin the blame on anyone particular, or do you, for example, Mike Ashley putting all the eggs in the takeover basket, which has now been delayed, or do you see any other blame?
I mean, I think like most things at Newcastle United, all roads lead back to Mike Ashley. And I think ultimately, if he's unwilling to invest some of his own money because he's, you know, placing so much importance on the arbitration and the various cases against the Premier League, then, you know, there's only so much sort of leverage and pressure that Steve Bruce can exert on him. I think we've already seen Steve Bruce is unwilling to play the media political game that Rafa Benitez was able to play to some effect, and you know, ultimately there's varying opinions on whether Steve Bruce has been able to get more out of Mike Ashley. Obviously, the signings of Wilson at, you know, that late 20s age that historically was against our business model, but obviously this summer's been a very tough one. I think we can't get away from the fact that even signing Willock is just taking us back to where we finished last season. We haven't really strengthened since then. So there's a clear need for further refreshment of the squad. I think it's always a risk that if you don't move forward, you essentially go backwards. And I think ultimately we are weak in a number of areas of the squad. I think some of the teams that we've put out in pre-season, you would look at them and I suppose a couple of things. One, just the volume of players that are still there from when we were in the Championship, and two, just the general look of the side. Just you know, it looks like a relegation side, and I take no pleasure in saying that. But ultimately, we need to improve in a number of areas. The main area I'm really concerned about is up front. I think we have Callum Wilson and we have nobody else. I know Dwight Gale did pop up with a couple of goals against Norwich in the final pre-season friendly, but I think we've seen both in Bruce's lack of trust in him, but also in his track record in the Premier League, he's not really cut out for it. I think we're very short in that area, and I think we could really do with investing. And I think what's worrying me most is we don't seem to be linked with any strikers or even rumoured to be in for a striker. It seems to be mostly in the central midfield and, you know, most surprisingly of all, the centre-half areas where we seem to be really well stocked, albeit we have sold Lejeune and obviously Kel Watts did go out on loan today. But yeah, ultimately for me, I still think we're short. And, you know, I wrote a season sort of preview for the other 19 clubs with True Faith that went online today. And I think we'll be well amongst the mix for relegation if we don't bring in at least another couple of, and I'm talking first team players here. I'm not talking sort of squad depth. I'm talking people to come in and sort of influence and improve that first team. I think we'll be well in the mix, unfortunately, just as Adam was saying, for relegation, unless we improve further before the window closes.
So with that being said, obviously I know they've never made massive impacts on the first team, but because of the lack of cover we now have, would you have got rid of, say, Andy Carroll or Yoshinori Muto? I know, as I say, they've not exactly set the world on fire.
Yeah,
yeah. Is it not better to have them than no one at all?
No. I think it's actually important to get people like that off the wage bill. I know Carroll theoretically was on a pay-as-you-play deal, and obviously Muto I don't think was on a great deal of money, but getting rid of the likes of them, obviously Saive is finally off the wage bill. I think Lazar is as well. These are all on that sort of you rumoured high 30s, 40 grand a week. I mean, it does all add up, and I think we're very much in a space, as you can see from the accounts, where Mike Ashley's certainly not wanting to invest any money, so it's basically freeing up space on the wage bill to enable players to come in. I'm expecting us to utilise the loan market towards the end of the window. I think, Bruce has been very open about that he's looking to basically wait until the big clubs, which, makes me cringe every time he says that. Newcastle are a big club, and I won't hear otherwise, but ultimately he's waiting for the so-called big clubs to do their business, and then he's going to pick off, I guess, a couple of younger players that like in the same sort of mould of a Willock. Southampton brought in a Chelsea youth team striker today. It's good to see clubs actually being proactive rather than just wait until the end of the window. Why can't we do that? We know what our market is. We should be shopping in there proactively rather than wait until the end. But I won't be waiting for bated breath with any more permanent signings past Willock. Dan, I think that could be it, and then maybe 2 more loan signings after that.
You mentioned Southampton there as well. They've just brought in Adam Armstrong, former Newcastle player from Blackburn. Have we missed the trick there?
I don't know what the lads think. It might be good to get their views on this as well. But for me, I will be looking more for Ivan Toney this season. I think he's the one who has the better chance of taking to the Premier League really well. I just think just his physique, his pace, some of his movement is exceptional. I think there's no doubt Armstrong has qualities, and I think he showed that in the volume of goals he scored in the Championship last season. But if I was to sort of hedge my bets, he'll get more goals out of the two. Even though Tony's in a promoted side, I'd say him. I suppose the only thing which does surprise me is we obviously read that Newcastle due 40% of any profit Blackburn make on the deal. So whether that would have given us a leg up with Blackburn to sort of say, look, we'll maybe give you a little bit more money as long as he comes to us, I don't know, because obviously we'd be sort of sidelining the 40% part. But no, I mean, would I have re-signed him at that price? Probably not. But like I've said, any striker would be welcome at this stage.
I'll come to Chris and Adam now. Do you think we missed a trick with Adam Armstrong, or are you on the side of Craig and say that the price tag probably wasn't right?
It's a tricky one, mate, really, because, I really wanted Armstrong to do well at Newcastle the first time around. It was really sad when he went. There's no doubt he's improved at Blackburn. He looks a very good player. He scored all different types of goals. He looks stronger. He looks quicker. I think the fact that our manager is perpetually stuck in 1997, I don't think Armstrong was ever going to be on the radar, really, because he's just too little. I think that's a very silly kind of mindset to have, really, in the modern day game. We're about to talk about arguably the greatest player ever, who's a very small man as well. So
I'm a small man.
not in that way, mate. Not that way. But yeah, so it's kind of the archaic view of Steve Bruce, but it's a tricky one because 15 million quid, I think it was in the end of Southampton. It sounds all right in this current market, but it could end up blowing up on them. They've just lost Danny Ings, who's on his days one of the best goal scorers in the league still. Very busy striker, adds a lot to the team. Armstrong's got big shoes to fill. Going what Craig said there, loan market, I'm amazed we haven't been all over Tammy Abraham or something like that. That would have been a good strong move for us. He's already scored goals in the Premier League. He needs football. I think he's worked with Bruce before. Villa, I think Bruce brought him in. Or might have been Dean Smith. But that's the kind of sign that I think we should be going after, and then maybe saving the money for other areas like the defence.
What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, it's always a shame when you see players that used to play for us going out and doing really well. I think of the example of John Dal Thomason, who didn't really tear many trees playing for Newcastle, but then was away playing in Champions League finals and European tournaments. I think as well, I mentioned earlier on Thauvin, who went off to win the World Cup with France as well. But I think with Armstrong, it's a bit of a funny one because we don't necessarily know how good he can be. Could he potentially be a bit of a Dwight Gale, maybe like a championship sort of +1 sort of player? We're yet to see if he can make it in the Premier League. But if he goes out this season and scores, 10 or so goals for Southampton, then he'll be disappointing to think that we did let him go. But perhaps I think we just need to maybe wait and see. see what happens. See what happens this season.
Yeah, very good. Now, we'll end that topic there and we'll go on to our second topic, as Chris, quite well sort of slid us into there. So thank you very much for that. Our second topic sees us move away from Newcastle to the news that Lionel Messi, possibly the greatest player of all time, I'm not going to get into that argument right now because I don't want the hate comments, is to leave Barcelona, and he's on his way to Paris Saint-Germain. He's arrived in Paris today. So coming to you for this, Chris, because I know you've got a stat pack prepared. Just how big is this news?
It's probably the best free transfer of all time, really, isn't it? Let's be honest with you, even though he's getting a large sign-on fee. So, yeah, just a little bit in terms of his career. We all know his numbers are ridiculous. You're looking at 714 club games, 627 club goals, 87 games for Argentina and 49 goals, even though apparently he's crap for his country. So that's not bad rates, really, to be fair. Last season, he banged in 38 goals, 12 assists. He's all over the place. At 34, he's picking the ball up in all sorts of areas. He's just world class. I'm really disappointed he didn't come to the Premier League. I know I would have hated it when he was, running Lascelles ragged for the Man City shirt or something, but it would have been nice to have seen him in the Premier League for the kind of final hurdle of his career. That kind of lineup that they're going to have at Paris Saint-Germain, him, Mbappe and Neymar, is like a cheat in some computer game. It's mental. And, we'll throw it over to the lads in a minute, but isn't it interesting how one state-owned club can buy the best player in the world and then another state-owned club can't even buy a club in this country, isn't it? So
I don't know what
I'm not bitter.
There, Chris. Not a clue what you're on about. But no, you're right. It is very big news, of course. As I say, one of the best players of all time, suddenly leaving the club he's been at for pretty much the whole of his career and then going to another team. Adam, do you think it's a bit of a waste that he's going to Paris Saint-Germain? Obviously, in the Champions League, not so much, but in a league that is notoriously not as, say, competitive as the Premier League. And would you prefer to have seen him in this country, even if it was at Man City, which is probably the only club that could have afforded him?
Yeah, I was really sad to hear the news that he was going to PSG. I just think it's just the inevitability of modern football that he leaves Barcelona and the club again that's backed by a Middle Eastern state. It's like, yeah, we'll have you, come and play for us. But it must be difficult for Messi to sort of know now what he wants to achieve, what else there is for him to achieve in domestic football. Really, played at Barcelona, won various league titles, Champions Leagues, and at the age of 34. So I don't know. It is disappointing. I tend to see the world through the eyes of Football Manager and think, it would be amazing if he signed for someone like Wigan or something like that. But no, I was disappointed. But Messi gives me faith that I can actually still play football because he's exactly 1 week younger than me. He was born on the 21st of June, 1987. So there's some good news there in that story at least. But no, I was really disappointed to see that he signed for PSG.
Lionel Messi going to Wigan. What a turn for the books that would be. I wonder if you could actually get odds on that. I don't think they would give odds on that, but it would be millions to one. But
did you see the betting odds? We were actually better odds to signing than Real Madrid were, which blew my mind.
But wow, I mean, obviously he is getting on a bit now. Obviously he's in his 30s, and yes, he's past his best. But what do you think he'll be like playing for PSG alongside Neymar and Mbappe?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Chris was saying. It's almost unfair on the rest of the teams in Liga, and really, I mean, I suppose to pick up on a point you were making, Dan. I mean, obviously, there's this sort of impression, he gets dubbed as the Farmers League and all that sort of nonsense. I mean, PSG didn't even win the league last year. I mean, let's just say that Lille sort of were champions. So, it's arguably it's not as bad as the Bundesliga. I can't remember the last time a team that wasn't Bayern Munich won that. So, but yeah, I mean, you look at I saw a graphic on Twitter earlier there, squad depth across the board. I mean, not just Messi on a free transfer, Donnarumma on a free transfer, Ramos on a free transfer, Wijnaldum, who's a European champion, on a free transfer. They signed Hakimi, who was one of the world's best right backs, for 60 million. I mean, it is insane the sort of talent they have at their disposal, and you sort of fear for Mauricio Pochettino a little bit. He simply has to win everything there is to win with that team. There is no excuse not to win. every French domestic trophy, the Champions League, the bloody World Cup, even though they can't enter it. He should really be winning everything. So, I mean, I think on a personal note, it was quite moving to see how Messi was at the sort of departure press conference the other day. I think they are totally bizarre events, really. It's not something we really get over here. It seems to be, Ramos had one earlier in the summer, and then obviously Messi gets one. I get their club legends, but it seems a bit of a sort of a forced drama for the sort of the Twitter age, really, to make sort of these world stars sort of sob their hearts out and say how much they're going to miss the club. But it was moving, and I would have loved to have seen him in the Premier League. I think to test himself in the so-called best league in the world, although Stoke aren't in the league anymore, I'm sure that there'll be some...
Could he have done it? Could he have done it on a way?
Exactly. There'll be some nasty environments for him to test himself in, but... I mean, look, basically, the French league should be a foregone conclusion now. I think it would have been good to see him at a Man City, at Chelsea, even. I wouldn't have been fussy. Look, we've got to be honest. He's one of the best players that's ever played the game. Some would say the best. I personally wouldn't, but he's just a special talent. We're not getting into that, Dan. We're not getting into that. But yeah, he's a special talent.
Open the door now, Craig. You've opened the door.
Oh, bring it. But yeah, I'm not going to say who it is, Ronaldo. But I
Thank
think
God for that. I thought you were going to say Joelinton for a minute. I was going to go crazy there, mate.
But yeah, I mean, I think in summary, look, it's sort of, he will go there. He'll make a stack load of money. Look, Paris is a beautiful city. He'll look to be that person who delivers the Champions League. So there'll be a little bit of legacy for him. But I think on a sporting level, it's quite sad because it just tilts the playing field so far in favour of PSG. It's untrue, really.
Yeah, now I'm going to have to go into that now. You mentioned Ronaldo. That just out of interest, why is it? Because it is, the debate of this sort of modern footballing age. Why would you pick him over Messi?
I think there's a number of things, really. Some of them are just personal preference. I mean, I admire the fact he's won leagues in 3 different countries, Champions League with 2 different sides. I suppose that's one thing I could say for Messi now. I mean, it'd be good to see him outside of that Barcelona bubble. He's come up through the academy. Everything was built around him. He had the world's best midfield for 5-6 years, feeding him the ball. Admittedly, most of his goals he creates himself. But I think that's one area. And to be honest, Ronaldo, whether you love him or hate him, and many do fall on the hate side, he's just got more character. Messi tends to be sort of more softly spoken. You don't really hear from him in the media. He's more of a, sticks with his family and his friends. Whereas I think, Ronaldo, just the celebrations, the sort of, exactly, the outgoing nature of himself. I just tend to gravitate more towards his personality. And look, at the end of the day, it's a pick 'em for me. I think we've been blessed to live in the time when both of them were at their absolute peaks. I remember seeing Ronaldo at St James's Park, I think, in one of his last 2 seasons at United when he was at his absolute best in terms of when he was in England. And it was so impressive. He's just sort of a class above really anything that was on the pitch. And, that's not me having a dig at the Newcastle side. I think that would have been the case against any team in the league. So personal preference, I've got no issue with anybody who says Messi, but for me, it's Ronaldo.
Fair enough. And now, just before we move on from this topic, obviously mentioned Barcelona there. As a club, they're in a bit of a state now, aren't they?
Again, I'll just a quick comment on that, and obviously let the lads come in. But I think it's scary the amount of mismanagement that's gone on at that club, and I think it's sort of a vicious circle where they've pushed the ball out to keep Messi on an insane contract, which you'd have to say he probably does deserve. But they've also signed loads of players alongside that. The likes of a Griezmann and Ousmane Dembele were both in excess of 100 million. They've also made a lot of bad recruitment as well. They've signed a lot of players that literally stay for a season and then they're looking to get out the door the next season. And what's interesting, if you look past the likes of Pedri and Ansu Fati, who are the sort of the main two, the academy, is not really producing the level of player it was back when it was, literally just trotting out the likes of a Busquets, a Xavi, and Iniesta, a Puyol, a Piqué on a regular basis. So they've sort of been hitting a number of different areas, and it's sad to see. It's obviously a legendary club in Spain and around the world. So fingers crossed they can sort themselves out, but they could be in for a couple of barren years, you might think, if they can't find any more players.
I'll let you go now, Chris. Yeah.
Yes, it's no secret. I mean, I think they're in over $1 billion or euros over debt. I think Laporta said they lost 460 million in the pandemic. But when you look at their weekly wages, as Craig rightly says there, the players they brought in, some of the weird moves as well. I think Suarez was on something like €280,000 a week. They got rid of him to Madrid. Atletico Madrid. He wins the league. They signed Griezmann at €881,000 a week. And it just seems like such a stupid idea. They didn't really need him. I don't think. I think Suarez could have still had a good couple of seasons with him. They could have maybe pulled the money back round. But it's very strange, isn't it, that this financial mismanagement, everybody complains about FFP, but this is what it's there for. So you don't have to lose your greatest ever player because of your complete lack of financial planning. It's just... it's the fans I feel sorry for. Again, going back to that press conference, there was something that Messi said was really sad. I was looking to be at Shearer's testimonial game. I think some of the lads might have been as well. And if you could have bottled that atmosphere and sold it, it was just amazing. You times that by 100, you would get the atmosphere Messi would get at the new camp, full of fans with a send-off. They've been deprived of that, because of the pandemic, but also because of these guys in suits, complete mismanagement of their football club. And it is really sad. So it's a shame for the fans.
Yep. Any thoughts on that one, Adam?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of when I used to play Football Manager. I used to have a bit of a track record of bankrupting the clubs just by wanting to sign every single player. Oh, they want 100 million, yeah, they can have that. Oh, they want this wages, yeah, they can have that. And then being like, oh, hang on a minute, got some problems here. But maybe it goes to show, maybe we're lucky having Mike Ashley as an owner. He goes to show how lucky you can be without spending this money. It means
I can mute you. I can mute you.
His broadband's dropping out, I think, Dan.
Yeah. And just the last point for me on this, what's interesting, and it's sort of a little bit of a riff on what Adam just said, is obviously Barcelona have this sort of socios model where it's, members and, everybody buys the subscriptions and it's sort of you can vote in the president and out the president. It just shows you that doesn't make you immune from mismanagement. It doesn't, just because there's a fan, local businessman running your club, you can still end up in dire straits if you sort of, go to the extremes they did when they were recruiting and sort of giving contracts to players. So maybe just some food for thought. But yeah, I'm certainly not thinking Mike Ashley's a saviour anyway.
Whew, back to normality. Thank you for that. Right, we'll bring to an end that topic there, and we'll move back to Newcastle. Now, we're going to discuss Joelinton becoming the number 7 and Callum Wilson, of course, going to now wear the number 9 shirt. Now, in the grand scheme of things, it is only a small matter, but Craig, do you think it actually could be a weight off his shoulders?
I certainly hope so, because I'm running out of other ideas to get the best out of him. I think we've tried him up front, on the left, on the right, in a 10, coming off the bench. So I'm hoping it unlocks something in him. Obviously,
sitting in the stands as well, that could work.
Yeah, maybe. Sitting in the stands, yeah, So I think, he has scored in pre-season, I think just the one, but obviously I stand to be corrected on that. But I think it can help. And also I think it's got the dual possibility of actually making Wilson a better player. He was brilliant for us last season. I think without his goals and his influence and his sort of his hold-up play off the ball, I think we'd have been in real trouble. But, I was reading his article with Alan Shearer, the interview with Shearer in The Athletic the other day, and you can just tell he's really relishing, the opportunity to follow in the footsteps of the likes of a Shearer and to really make his stamp in that number 9 shirt. I think he seems to be really aware of the history of that shirt. So for me, him getting that can only be encouraging. I would have given it at the start of last season, but, he still was brilliant for us last season. In terms of Joelinton, yeah, look, he'd be nowhere near my first choice team. I think, he would be in an ideal world, probably as a third choice striker if we brought somebody in. But as I've said, the likelihood is we're not going to. So he's going to get a lot more minutes. His appearance numbers over the past couple of seasons have actually been really high considering how poor his performances have been in the main. So, but you never know. It might just unleash that little release that little bit of pressure on him, and allow him to sort of show what he was showing towards the end of his time in Germany. He is hoping, obviously, we're yet to see much return at all on that record transfer fee. I think this really has to be his last season. I think it's the last roll of the dice for him at the club. And I think if he doesn't perform this season, we'll be looking to move on. Yeah,
that 40 million that we signed him for, obviously, as you say, we haven't had the best of it, and, well, who knows? Adam, obviously, Joelinton, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because you see at times there are flashes of something that could be potential there, but what do we do with him? How do we make that more consistent, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly not an out-and-out number 9, and I think the penalty fiasco against Man City at the end of last season went to show. I think I know the lads mentioned it on the True Faith podcast earlier in the week when he didn't take the second penalty, and Bruce said, "Oh, it was a South American thing," or something like that. And but it just goes to show he's not desperate to score goals. He's not desperate to get across defenders and dive onto the edge of crosses. And he's clearly not a number 9. He can be effective out wide. I think it was the very beginning of his time at Newcastle when I forget the game, but it was Arsenal away at the Emirates, went on to get beat 4-0 in the end. But in the first half, he was running down the left, and he was giving it, was it Zaka? I forget, a torrid time. So he can be quite effective and quite robust in those sort of wide areas. But I think giving him number 7, when I think of Newcastle United number 7s, I think of Robert Lee. I think Kieran Dyer wore 7 for a brief period of time. Then he moved to number 8 when Christian Bassidas left. I don't know why I know that. This is absolute random knowledge. But you think of those types of players, and again, just Joelinton, it's just not that type of attacking, go and get them type of player. And I think maybe something like a 37 or something would have been more apt. Or is that maybe a bit harsh? I don't know. But
given his price tag, maybe that's a little bit harsh, but I can see where you're coming from. But yeah, I don't know what to make of it, to be honest, because I really, really want him to do well. I'm so desperate because in that video where they swapped the shirts, him and Wilson, I don't know, he just seemed so nice. And then there was that whole thing when there was the Euros final, and he was like, "Let's go, Graham," and I found that quite amusing. But yeah, I want him to do well. To be fair, though, you mentioned that penalty against Man City there, and to be fair, his penalty that he actually took himself was really good. It was a brilliant penalty, lashed into the side netting. But yeah, looking into this season, Chris, what would you do with him? Where would you play him?
Well, it's interesting. I think the lads make good points. I mean, I'm sure Joelinton's a lovely bloke, and he does come across as a lovely bloke, and he's still a relatively youngish player as well, so he may get better, but I just don't think he's cut out for this league, whether he's number 7, whether he's number 0 or he's number 96, I don't care what his number is. I just don't think we're going to see any more of an impact than we'll be getting already from him. I think you could get Pep Guardiola to manage Newcastle. I don't think you get any better out of Joelinton. I just don't think he's good enough for the league. So he's good to have in reserve. There is moments when he can, be a bit of a nuisance. But he's not much of a threat, I don't think. If I was an opposing defender, yeah, you would look at him and think, well, keep an eye on him, but I don't think he would cause you any real trouble. Going on to more positive things, I think Wilson, number 9, is absolutely superb. Wilson's got a wonderful charm and arrogance about him as a player. Where he's so full of himself, but it's endearing. You don't hate him for it. And he's hungry. Everything Adam said that Joelinton isn't, Wilson is. He's hungry for goals. He makes himself available. He's always looking for the ball. He's always looking to make that move, and I think, he could be up there with one of our best number 9s if he, stays injury free and stays here for another season or two. But yeah, Joelinton for me, mate. I'm sorry. I know that Joe Seibels love him and they all praise, that he's going to do well one day, but he's just not good enough, man. Any other club would have had him gone by now. Any other club would have got rid by now.
The Joe Seibels. I've not heard that one before. That's brilliant.
My phrase I've coined.
They do actually exist. Chris is right. They do actually exist.
They do. I have seen them.
Yeah.
There'll be in the comments below now threatening to burn my speakers down or something like that. But he's not very good.
Comments we're going to get on this video now. I can just tell.
I'm sorry. He's just not very good. I mean, if any Hoffenheim fans could say he was good there, as well. Christ, So
I mean, to be fair to him, he did really well against Tyrone Mings, and he bullied him against Villa.
Yeah. It's a great point. It's a great point, Dan. That was the game I was thinking of. I wonder which one Adam was thinking of, but that was the game he gave Tyrone Mings a going over in that game. And,
Mings has a rick in him, though, Craig. Mings does have a rick in him.
He does, but this was literally, I thought, all game. And it was. But like you say, you get one of those every 20. Like you need one of those every 3 or every 2. Like for 40 million, you want them every game. But let's say 1 in 2 or 3. You can't have them 1 in every 20 games. And there's too many games we carry him. And I think all the lads have spoke really well. It's his mindset for me. He doesn't have that killer instinct that you want in a forward or a goal scorer. He snatches at chances. They often bobble into the keeper's arms. No conviction. The most conviction strike, Dan, was exactly right. That penalty against Man City.
Yeah.
But it was a free shot from 12 yards. I mean, I'd like to think the majority of us could at least get one or 2 in past the Premier League keeper out of 10. But
I thought you were going to pull a Scooby-Doo mask off and it was Shearer underneath, just finding everybody up. I think.
But yeah, look. If he does anything this season, I take 5 goals off him now. If you said to me he'll get 5, I'll take you, and that's how low my expectations are.
Oh, poor man.
Oh, he's a nice lad. I think the fan base knows he's a canny lad, and he does try. I don't think nobody's saying he doesn't try, but he just Chris is hitting the nail on the head. He just doesn't have it. He just doesn't have it for this league, in my eyes, anyway.
I think we can sort of agree that he's not a number 9. That's like obviously, as you say there, he hasn't got that killer instinct to go and score goals and get in the box and be in the right place at the right time. He has, as I mentioned, he has done okay at times in a wider position, and hopefully, I just hope that Graham Jones can work some magic. Obviously, last season probably wasn't in there for long enough to make him a full impact, but hopefully with a full season with him now, Graham Jones won us with England this summer, so hopefully, and I know you won't agree with that, Chris, being a Scotland supporter.
The Euros was over really quickly for me, mate, to be fair. I only had one game I enjoyed, the 0-0 win. That was it, yeah.
0-0 win, yes. Well, that's the thing. I'm surprised we haven't actually mentioned any of the Euros so far. But yeah, I mean, obviously, just before we go into the last topic, I don't know, what did we all make of it? I'll start with you, Chris, as the Scotland supporter. One.
Thanks, mate.
One goal, 0 wins. You enjoy it?
Yeah. Well, it was about what I expected, to be honest with you, mate. But no, I mean, to be honest, I spoke to one of my mates at length about this. That we're talking about strikers. Scotland didn't have any real threat up front. And that showed, and I think certainly against England as well, they did okay. And if they had better strikers on the pitch, they might have nicked their win. It was a shame. Like Billy Gilmore in that game, and then he obviously got COVID and he couldn't play the rest of the games, mate. And that was pretty much us done. But yeah, it was nice to get there as a Scotland fan. Hopefully we can get to the next World Cup as well. And not wait so long to qualify for major tournaments, because at least having the Scots at a tournament's quite hubris and interesting anyway, isn't it? So.
It is, yeah. So, Adam, how did you find the Euros?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I love summer football tournaments when it's light outside and it's like three matches on a day. It's also my birthday in June as well, so that time of year is always like really enjoyable for me. But no, there's a bit of an emptiness. I think England just not able to get over the line at the end. But then you kind of forget, like, we've lived through so many like awful, disappointing tournaments with England, so we just got to enjoy it, haven't we? Enjoy it that we got to the final. It was, when you sat and watching England in a semi-final, you can't really replace that sort of adrenaline, that feeling. When they say they're 1-0 up or 2-1 up or whatever, just hoping to hang on, and when the final whistle goes, knowing that you're in the final, you don't get that very often. So yeah, it was enjoyable. Just a shame not to get across the line there in the final.
Indeed. And finally, Craig, what were your thoughts on it all?
Yeah, I mean, similar to Adam, really. I mean, you can't get too greedy, but I just think once you get to the final, you're obviously really desperate to win it. We don't know when we'll get there again. I do think, look, Southgate's done a really good job with England. A semi final and a final in 2 consecutive major tournaments. I'm not having this Nations League nonsense in the middle.
I like the nation. I'm a full-on supporter of it.
I think we've been there before on this show. I'm not going to discuss it, but it's an absolute nonsense. But yeah, I just wish he'd let the handbrake off a little bit more. I think I wrote this in my fan focus piece for True Faith the other week. I think ultimately the attacking players we had at our disposal, and just his default setting is to react to what the opposition does. He changed his system every game to react to what the opposition does, apart from the final, interestingly, when he went 5 at the back when the Italians had 4. And you just look at the talent we have and think we should be much more front foot. We should have more of an attacking threat. We shouldn't be relying so much on sort of set pieces or crosses. It, we should be playing through the lines, that type of thing. But look, a final's good, but will we get a better chance than an Italy side, which were, they were very impressive, but I thought on the night they weren't brilliant first half. Could we have put our foot down a little bit more, got the second, and potentially held on from there? But look, a really fun tournament despite COVID. I'm not a fan of the format. I think it's got to be in one country going forward. And I think UEFA have said that as well, because you want that sort of fan festival feeling where everybody can mass in the same country. But who doesn't love a summer tournament?
No, I agree. All I'm going to say is that in 2016, France lost the final of the Euros in their own country, in their own home stadium. And then 2 years later, they won the World Cup. England 2022 world champions, that's all I'm saying. It's coming.
Get a bet on, mate. Get your bet on.
I might have to. But yes, finally, we'll move on to our fourth and final topic, which concerns Newcastle's first game of the season, which, of course, is on Sunday. St James's Park, West Ham at home with fans back in St James's Park without restrictions for the first time since February 2020. Was it Burnley? I think it was.
I can't remember SJP. I was at the Southampton game, which is the last game we played pre-lockdown. But I can't remember SJP full since forever. So it'll be amazing to see that on Sky as well. It's good it's on telly, the first one, and hopefully we have a couple of goals to celebrate in either or the crowd.
I'd like to think so. Now, Chris, as well, I think you've put together a bit of a predicted lineup, have you not?
Yeah, I think for me it was interesting. I was, we'll bring the lads in and see what they think as well. But you'll go for 5-3-2 as he always does. That seems to be his preferred kind of formation, isn't it? But I had Freddie Woodman in goal because I think he's the only goalkeeper we've really got at the moment, and I'm quite looking forward to
able to walk at the minute.
That's exactly it. He's the only one who's tested negative. But I'm looking forward to seeing Woodman, in the Premier League taking his chance, and I really hope he takes it with both hands. No pun intended. 3 at the back. I would go for Hayden at the back. Funnily enough, with Lascelles and Fernandez, with Murphy and Lewis either side of them. I know you're a big Jacob Murphy fan, Dan, and I think he's been brilliant pre-season. We'll come on to him in a second, I'm sure. Midfield, funny enough, I put Sean Longstaff and Willock in there. I think you'd have legs, energy. I don't want Shelby anywhere near the team. That's my personal preference. I think he just slows the pace down. Weirdly enough, he has his best game against West Ham for us, but I still wouldn't have him in my team. And then, Wilson up top being flanked with, ASM and Mickey. So I don't know what the lads think, but that's what I would choose.
Well, it depends whether whether Willock has signed in time. But apart from that, I'd go with that. But and then obviously you've got the likes of, say, Ryan Fraser or Joelinton who can come on. But yes, obviously you mentioned Jacob Murphy. That I'm a massive Jacob Murphy fan. I think, I don't know what it is. Obviously his delivery into the box is fantastic. His shooting is really good. And apart from Saint Maximin, he's one of the only players in our squad who can actually take a man on and beat a man.
Yeah,
and he's got pace to burn as well. But obviously, looking at West Ham, of course, we had a fantastic season last season. Adam, how do you see it going? Big question, I know, but
yeah, I mean, we beat West Ham. It doesn't feel like that long ago since we played them because it was quite towards the end of last season. We beat them at home 3-2, and we do tend to have a good record against them. I'd just like to see us sort of go out and just the first game of the season is always a bit of a free hit. You get some really sort of strange results, unexpected results perhaps on the first weekend of the season. But just go out, full house, hopefully at St James's Park, and just have a real go. Like we're saying there, if give Fraser perhaps a chance. Again, first game of the season, everyone seems to be fit, which is nice for us. Whereas, Fraser's had these injury problems, Maximan, obviously Wilson. So get the attacking players on the pitch and just have a real go at them. And I remember we started the game against West Ham back in the spring really positively. We did have a couple of helping hands from Fabianski for those couple of goals. But no, let's just have a real go at them. Get the crowd back in the stadium, crowd off their feet. Let's see some Maximan running at people, turning defenders inside and out, and just hopefully just have a real go at them and hopefully get a win.
Yeah, we did a double over West Ham last season, didn't we? Because of course we beat them on the opening day away, and then beat them 3-2. Now that 3-2, to be fair, was interesting because we were 2-0 up, and then when they brought it back to 2-2, which is just the most typical thing. But then of course, Mr. Willock, wasn't it? I believe who saved us once again.
Yeah.
So Chris, I mean, hopefully he does make the starting 11. I don't know. Well, I don't know. I'll put this out. Do you think he'll be there in time?
I hope so.
I can't see it, but yeah. Sorry, Chris.
Sorry, Craig. No, I hope he does. I mean, I think if we sign him in time, get it wrapped up. I think he's played some pre-season for Arsenal, so he's had some work done. I know last time when we got him on loan, he threw him straight in, didn't he, against Southampton in that mental game, and we all just thought, God, this kid's played no football, but he's showed he's got that engine, he's got that endless energy, that a young player you expect to have from a young player, which is why I put him in there with Sean Longstaff. I know Sean gets a lot of abuse from sections of the fan base, but again, Sean runs all day long. Yeah, but I mean, I think the problem is with Sean, he came on so well, and then he had that injury, and I think we expected almost a bit too much of him too soon. But he's got loads of energy, and I think him and Willock would actually complement each other really well. But yeah, Craig might be right. It might be a little bit too soon. Obviously, if that is the case, maybe you move, I don't know, Hayden in the midfield and you bring Shaw to the back. I don't know, but I'm the same as Adam, mate. I want to see them go at West Ham. We know we can beat them. Then they haven't got Jesse Lingard, anymore, which was a big player for them last season. Which I'm sure they'll be upset that they couldn't get that deal done. So, I think we've got enough to really go at West Ham and do them, So I'm predicting 2-0 win. So
nice.
Ooh, yeah. Well, I'll go around your predictions, then I'll come to you next, Craig.
Yeah, it's a good one. I sort of before I get my prediction, I think Chris could be right. Actually, just haven't thought about it, because at the end of the day, he's played with us before. It's not as if he's a brand new signing. So as long as he's fit, he knows the team, he knows the ethos, he knows Bruce Ball, so to speak. So it's not as if he has to adapt to tactically. I think I always like Hayden in midfield. I think, look, he absolutely can do a job in defence, but I think if Shaw is available, I would probably do what Chris just referenced then, put Shaw in and push Hayden into the midfield alongside probably Willock and Longstaff, and then does that maybe leave you with probably ASM and Wilson up front? Whether, Miggy's had a long summer. He's played umpteen games for Paraguay. He's been over the other side of the world in the Copa America and I think World Cup qualification. So whether Miggy's quite up to speed, I think for me, I think we've got a generally quite friendly set of early fixtures, but I don't want Bruce to panic and think we have to rush all our players onto the pitch and pick up injuries. I think if players have got a workload that they've had over the summer, I think we need to be careful, particularly with the likes of Almiron, who's been, running to the ground. He picked up a couple of knocks when he was over there. So whether we just hold him,
ran to Paraguay or ran to Argentina to play in the Copa America. I think he probably ran there himself.
Yeah, honestly, he puts in some miles, bless him. But I would maybe hold him back this game and just go with ASM and Wilson up front. And then, look, I wouldn't even play a 5-3-2. I'd go 4-3-3, but I think we all know he's going to play a 5-3-2. So, and just picking up on what Adam was saying, Fraser for me was a really exciting signing this time last year. Obviously, had a very underwhelming first term with us, but I'd love to see him have a breakout season. I think he does have it in him if he stays fit, and that will be the key. And in a long rambling way, I'll go for a 2-1 win to Newcastle.
We got there in the end. Thank you.
We did.
And finally, Adam, what do you reckon?
I think I might go for 3-1 win. I think it could be. Hopefully we start well. maybe race into a 2-0 lead again. And then they peg one back, and then it's quite nervy, maybe in typical fashion, in that kind of midsection of the second half. And then St James's Park is sent into raptures as St Maximin twists and turns in the box and lays off Wilson to get the winner, 3-1. Great start of the season.
Adam,
he paints a pretty picture.
He does. I'm buying in. Are we done? Full house. Gonna have to make it a full house, mate.
Oh, right. What do I reckon? I'm always optimistic when it comes to Newcastle, and I don't know why. Because all I've ever known is Mike Ashley. So I don't know why I'm optimistic. Yeah, I'll err on the side of caution. I'll go for a 2-1 win. Quite a nervy one, but a win nonetheless.
Yeah.
As I say, siding with you on that one, Craig, but whether that will happen, I don't know. But I'm going to go with it. Because I'd like...
Come on, you Maggies.
Yeah. If we can't...
hopes on Willock just being there, aren't you, Craig?
I am, definitely. If he's not playing, I'll be gutted.
If we can't be optimistic before the first game of the season, we never will be. Because you know what it's like? It'll soon descend into misery again. So let's all go for a win, and then we'll come back on this show in 2-3 weeks' time and be misery guts then. So let's go with that.
Massively so. Well, that does bring to an end tonight's episode. Of course, the first one back since the summer. It's been great to be back as per usual. And obviously, cheers to all the lads here tonight for joining me. Now, remember to head to @TFNUFC on Twitter and get in touch if you do want to be part of True Faith. Do things like this right for the fanzine, right for the website too, as I mentioned at the start. But that's all I have to say. So thank you all very much for watching, and we'll see you all soon.